Plus, it's up for grabs now!
Magic ball from Bergkamp to Patrick Vieira!
Oh, would you believe it? Oh, right, what a way to get it!
Fabulous solo goal by Thierry Henry.
Champions.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Arsenal Lounge. Slightly later than planned, but we had to take into account Ramadan and, by the way, Ramadan Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters out there. And, it's another edition of the Arsenal Lounge, as I said before. Not a good one. It's not too bad, but before we get into all of that, let's say hello to the panelists. Firstly, Mo, Free Palestine, how you doing?
How's it going? Yeah, I'm good. And I'm glad this isn't a podcast about League 1. Otherwise, you wouldn't have shown any flexibility in terms of when I can break my fast and clash with the podcast. But all of the European leagues are good.
Good. And Tom, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. Last podcast in the UK I'll be doing for a while.
Oh, yeah. Going to a nice Chicago, which has had some interesting footage recently.
Yeah, thanks for that. I really appreciate you sending that through. That was
great. It's just because I care. It's just because I care, mate.
You know what? I didn't have to get to watch it. So context for everyone. Tom, you're heading to Chicago tomorrow?
I'm indeed, yeah. I'm indeed.
Something's going on in Chicago, but I didn't see it. So what is it?
Yeah, well, Lee sent me a video and there was like some youth riots yesterday. But I've done some digging and apparently it's not as bad as is being made out. So
he's hoping, yeah.
I'm convincing myself of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we go any further, just say hello to a few people in the chat. So I think that's Mo. Big up, I think. How you doing, guys? Paul, Nick Paris, Johan, Hugh, Perry's just come in. We've got a few guys in here. It just keeps changing. So I'll keep saying hello to you as the show goes on. But yeah, anyway, so here we go, guys. Tom, firstly, were you at the game yesterday?
Yep.
All right, hold fire. I'll come back to you. So after witnessing Manchester City dismantle Leicester in a very, very calm manner and in concise fashion, we were hoping, obviously, that we were going to continue to keep some sort of a gap between ourselves and them leading up to that all-important clash at the Etihad. We went to the London Stadium, and, well, that was yesterday, obviously. The lineups were as followed. We had Fabianski in goal with Kufal, Kieran, Zuma, Cresswell, Rice, Souček, Paqueta, Bowen, Antonio, and Ben Rama for West Ham. And for Arsenal, we had Ramsdale, White, Holding still in for the injured Saliba, Gabriel, Tierney in for the injured Zinchenko. Hoping to get some more news on that. Along with Partey and xhaka in midfield, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, and Jesus up front. Now, this looked like a pretty strong lineup for us. And listen, it was pretty much like the Liverpool script. Started really fast. Great start. I thought we were going to absolutely... I mean, my son, after the first 10 minutes, my son started looking at the goal difference to see if we could close in on the goal difference with City. Some great football was played in that first 10-15 minutes. I believe there was a disguised pass after Saka came in on the inside. Disguised pass from Odegaard into White. Crossing. Lovely move. 1-0. Jesus finishes it off. And then not long after that, we had Martinelli on the left. Beautiful crossing. He threatened the cross earlier on in the game that had been sort of cleared out by the West Ham defence. Beautiful crossing, far post. It's Odegaard, wasn't it? Odegaard, far post. Great finish, 2-0. And seemingly looking like we were going to coast. And then we started to mess around. Partey, I don't know what he was up to. But look, I'll go to Tom first. You was at the game, mate. Talk me through what you saw and how you felt about it all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've been as disappointed after the end of a game this season than that one. It was a real head scratcher. Literally, I was at the end of the game just kind of sitting there like that, just rubbing my forehead, thinking, how has this kind of happened at this stage? And I think that I think I reacted worse after the Anfield game, to be fair. I thought I was really pessimistic after that because it just felt so frustrating. But this one was like the naivety again kind of led to more frustration in me at this one, that we'd kind of once again let another 2-goal lead slip away through what I kind of perceived to be, I don't know if arrogance is too strong of a word, but certainly feeling too comfortable and being too comfortable at 2 goals up, which, you know, only a week ago we learned how perilous of a scoreline 2-0 can be. And it just felt as though after that game, we talked about a lot about lessons. I know we didn't do a podcast, but I certainly talked to my channel and to others about lessons that needed to be learned from that Liverpool game. And it just didn't feel like those lessons were learned, which when you come into the business end of a season is a really big shame, a real big shame. I think there are caveats still that we'll go into. I think there are certainly people overreacting regarding individuals that we'll talk about. But yeah, again, and we'll talk about this in more detail, but the manager's substitutions, again, for me, come into focus.
Yeah, we will go into that 100%. I mean, Mo, you watched the game as well. I mean, Thomas Partey, I mean, a lot's being said about Thomas Partey as well in regards to he had a really bad game, and he did. But up until that mistake, I don't think he did have that much of a bad game. He seemed to be in control, but the minute he made that mistake, I don't know what he was playing at. It all seemed to go wrong for him. But I mean, how did you feel about the game?
Well, you know, everyone was playing brilliantly the first 20 minutes, but 20 minutes doesn't equal a game. So overall, yeah, Partey did have a bad game. We saw it with Man City and Bayern Munich with Upamecano, who just made a mistake and got rattled, could not recover. Similar happened to Thomas Partey, unfortunately. But I think it's probably Thomas Partey's worst moment and worst performance of the season. He is team of the year. He's in the team of the season, without doubt. There's been no one better in his position than Thomas Partey this season. So, you know, I think we have to be somewhat realistic that if that's the worst thing you've done all season, you've had a bloody good season. And it's no surprise to me that it's happening at this stage of the season because the pressure tells. You know, I find it very interesting. Some people are going down the route of saying we've bottled it. Other people are going down the route of saying we're overly confident, overly complacent, perhaps what Tom was hinting at. I personally think it's neither of those things. I just think that it is the pressure of this title running. You can go and watch all of my videos from like game 5 of the season up to this point, and I've been talking about the first 8 or the first 10 games aren't like the last 8 or the last 10. It's a completely different kettle of fish. And what I'd say is that, like, just personally, how much time do you spend thinking about Arsenal winning the Premier League? You know, how often does that thought come into your head? Like, how dominant is that potential of doing something we haven't done in 19 years? It dominates my thoughts quite a lot. So can you imagine what it must be like for the footballers themselves, where they're in this amazing position, the fear that they must be feeling, the excitement they must be feeling? So I think that us as fans, we cannot understand, we simply cannot relate to how difficult it is, how much of a pressure cooker environment it is. It's impossible to play your natural game. Just absolutely impossible unless you've been there many, many times over. So Arsenal, if we look at Arsenal last season, the stakes were much lower. We were just trying to get top 4 and we couldn't handle that pressure. We kind of threw that away. And for me, the question has always been about Mikel Arteta and this group of players, that can you handle the last 8 games? Can you apply the lessons from last year to this year? And right now, I think it's completely normal, so I'm not going to be too hard on them. I'm massively disappointed. If that was Man City, I'd be saying it's unacceptable for them to do what we did against Liverpool and then to follow it up with what we did against West Ham. But for a team like Arsenal, it's actually what I expect. And this is why I've said that we shouldn't necessarily take pride in the fact that we've got the youngest or the second youngest team in the Premier League, because this is what happens with that. You know, so I think we don't have the age profile typically associated with Premier League winners. And there are some of the frailties. Here's the manifestation of some of those pressures. I just hope that next game, Southampton, we get the 3 points and it goes back to more regulation. And then the big one after that, that is going to make or break our season. If we get anything from that City game, it is huge, absolutely huge. And hopefully then the belief will start pouring back in. But with that still comes the pressure. And that question will always remain. Can Arsenal handle the pressure? Such a young team, such a young manager that have got no track record of collectively dealing with the pressure. Can they do it?
I think the most frustrating thing is we're bringing this on ourselves with our own actions, with our own mistakes. Because I know you mentioned pressure, but the first 10, 15 minutes of that game, we did not look like a team playing under pressure. We looked like a team that was playing fluid football. We could, if we had carried on in the same ilk, I reckon we could have got a couple more goals. It seems we invite the pressure on, and then when the game turns a little bit with a scenario, a situation, that's when it starts to get to us as a team. Now, Tom, I'll come to you with this. Just how much is maybe missing the likes of Saliba at the back, perhaps? Because I've noticed since we've lost him at the back, we're conceding a lot more. We don't seem to have that sort of commanding backline that we have had throughout the season. We're not able to play as much with a high line as perhaps we would have done when he's in the team. Antonio seems to be causing problems with Holding. I know people are saying, look, let's not be critical of Holding. And look, I don't want to be critical of Holding because you can't say he's done badly for us, but you can't also deny that since we've lost our usual backline, we've been conceding goals that we haven't been conceding prior. I mean, that's something we need to accept is happening. Now, I think one-on-one Saliba is immense, and he is obviously causing us an issue. And also the issue of Tierney trying to play in the inverted sort of fullback position, which doesn't seem to suit him. Let's be fair. Up and down the line as a fullback, he is good. He's a very good defender. But we're asking him to play in a position I don't think suits him. He's not a footballer of the ilk of Zinchenko. How much of that do you think has sort of played into what's going on right now?
I think that, look, any team that would lose two of their starting back four is going to have problems. And I include Man City in that, because if you look at the left-back situation at Man City, their backup left-back is Sergio Gomez, a significantly less able left-back than they've been using this season. And I think that ultimately the focus onto Rob Holding after this game, I think, is absolutely, to be honest, unjustified. The focus on him in particular, I think, is unjustified. Reason why is neither of West Ham's goals came down his flank whatsoever. So it's not as if Saliba being where Holding was in this game negates the goals we conceded, because it doesn't. Both goals we conceded didn't come from that side. I think that if Saliba was in, our build-up would be better. We would be more controlled. I think we'd be able to do more coming out from the back in that sense. However, Holding has been present in some of the brilliant pieces of football that we have done as a team. So it's not like we're incapable of winning games with Holding in the side, going to Anfield and avoiding defeat, going to West Ham and playing the football that we did to take a 2-0 lead in this. I question coming away from this game, and if your mind goes to Holding as to the reason why we didn't pick up 3 points, I think that's a little bit short-sighted, in all honesty, because it's not Saliba's absence as the reason why we didn't pick up 3 points yesterday. It's because of the complacency of when we were 2-0 up to not be ruthless and dominant enough at that point to go and get the third goal, to make the mistakes that led to the penalty. No matter what we thought of whether or not it was a penalty, it's secondary to the fact that we created that opportunity for West Ham through our own mistakes. Partey with the little flick and Gabriel diving in that moment. We did that to ourselves, whether or not we think it's a penalty. And to be honest, I don't think you'll ever see VAR overturn those types of incidents anyway. So I don't think there's any expectation for VAR to do that. What's irritating, I think, about it for me is that I'm so annoyed at our misfortune. And you think about last season, we lose Partey, we lose Tierney, we lose these players at key moments. I think Gabriel and Ben White are also facing fitness issues when we went to Newcastle, and also had them against Spurs as well. And then you go into this season, we strengthen. No one's talking about adding a third choice right-sided centre-back. Believe me, no one in either transfer window said, we need to make sure we add a third choice right-back, right-sided centre-back. No, because we had Saliba and we had White and we had Tomiyasu. Well, we lost Saliba and Tomiyasu in the same game, this season, which completely obliterated chances of us using a backup option in that area. And I'm just so sick of this rotten luck with injuries. And it's not even like last season. Certainly, we could go back to that January window of 2022 and go, we didn't do enough in that window. But no one can look back at 2023's January window and say we didn't have a good window, because the reason why we're still in the title race and still actually top of the league is because of the work that we did in that January transfer window this season. So it's for me at this point, I look at that and go, I'm just so sick and tired of losing key players at those moments. But yeah, it's a frustration.
But it's interesting though, isn't it, that you're talking about losing key players, but it was our players that will always be in the starting lineup that actually let us down.
Yeah.
But you see, this is where I see that pressure manifesting itself on the pitch. And this is what I mean. It gets in your head and you don't play your natural game anymore. Thomas Partey there, it's a very strange one. Like, either you visibly panic or you try too hard not to panic. And then you kind of think, no, I'm going to hold on to this ball, I'm going to retain possession. And you just don't play with that simplicity. Thomas Partey's game is based on that simplicity. He doesn't usually dink the ball over people's heads, in the middle of the park. And he's even seen Declan Rice coming. It was completely intentional, but that's the pressure. It makes you make the wrong decision. The pressure of Martinelli overhitting that pass at Anfield, that's pressure. This is what it all comes down to. So people say, people might say it's not confidence, it's not overconfidence, it's not cockiness, it's not bottling it, it's not pressure, it's individual mistakes. The individual mistakes come from that pressure. And we look at our last two games, it's coincided with Man City all of a sudden kind of raising to another level. And it's unavoidable. The whole world now is like, wow, look at Man City. It's just going to be a procession. Man City, you're going to do what Man City do. That in turn puts the pressure on. And that's what I think we've seen. Mikel Arteta needs to earn his money and understand how, because he was absolutely unable, absolutely incapable of doing this during the game against West Ham, because West Ham were the better team for the last 70 minutes. Only when, I'd say towards the last 10, 15 minutes of the game, did it become a bit of both. Other than that, it was just West Ham non-stop, and the stats during the game back that up, that since we scored our second goal, they were just dominant. So what Arteta couldn't do during the game, he needs to do after the game now. And that is get the team to be natural again, to just not worry about what's at stake here, just go out there and play football. Maybe they could do with a trip to Dubai or something, some warm weather training, whatever it might be, take their minds off things. But at this stage of the season, you don't have that luxury.
No, you're right. I mean, it's some real fine lines. If you think about it, the Liverpool game, had Zinchenko not been nutmegged, that goal probably would never happen. If Partey doesn't do what he does, do they come back into the game or do we continue? And then obviously you have the situation with Saka. We come out second half. If Saka converts that penalty, it's a totally different game. It's suddenly 3-1. I reckon we go on to maybe get a couple more. But instead he misses. And you mentioned pressure. He must have felt pressure. He's missed the entire target there. I was waiting for the net to rustle. He looked like it was in, and he just missed the whole goal.
But Saka is, if any Arsenal fan dares get on Saka's back for that, then honestly, they need a slap, because Saka is a legend. He is, for me, one of the best three players in the Premier League this season, alongside Odegaard and clearly Haaland. He's been phenomenal. So, it's just a shame that it was him, because he's such a likable bloke. In addition to that, Partey, we've spoken about him making the error. In addition to that, Gabriel, for me, again, team of the season central defender. He's been unbelievable. What he was doing going to ground like that, such an unconventional, ridiculous tackle. And then on top of that, Ramsdale, he should have saved that.
Yeah.
He's got his hand to that. He'll be gutted. But each one of these players, you look at them, let's start with Ramsdale. Look at the saves he's pulled off recently. He stopped us losing that Liverpool game. So, again, too many of these players have got too much in the bank, too much credit in the bank for what they've done this season for us to all of a sudden throw our toys out the pram. We just need to back them right till the very end.
I mean, those, by the way, on the flip side, those who are doubting Declan Rice in that central midfield, I mean, what a performance he put in against us in that game. I mean, you know, you could argue that he rattled Partey. Partey probably done it to himself in a sense. I think the mistake that he made, he knew just how important that mistake was and how it's turned the tide of the game. I think that affected him mentally. And it's quite funny because he's one of the more experienced guys. I think someone's rightly mentioned here. Didn't he win La Liga with Atletico? So if anyone's experienced in that team to make sure you don't do things like that in the final third of your own half, it should be him. But I think he realised the mistake. But the performance by Declan Rice from there on, after, I mean, you can imagine what that would be like. We're having Partey and Declan Rice together. It would be formidable. But yeah, brilliant. But all right, so let's look at you mentioned as well Arteta's performance. Let's look at it, because I'll start with you, Tom. What did you make of the substitutions? For me, when we're chasing a game and we need goals, would you have taken off Jesus, for example?
Yeah, no. I wouldn't have done. I would have taken off Saka for Trossard and moved Jesus to the right and put Trossard through the middle. And look, I think for those that are, vehemently against any kind of criticism towards Arteta, and as a person who used to be one of those people, I empathise with you people. But at the end of the day, it is hindsight that we're talking about here. It's really easy to say these things, and with the benefit of hindsight, that the substitutions didn't work. However, the problem is that this isn't like a one-off game that we're talking about the substitutions. Like, we've talked about the substitutions on this show a number of times. And when you talk about it so many times, it's not anomalies. We're talking about something in Arteta's management that he needs to improve. And that's all we're saying when we talk about the criticism towards substitutions. It's not he's a terrible coach. We need to find someone better. That's not the ludicrous discussions that some other people have had. We're talking about an area of Arteta's management and coaching that needs to get better. And his in-game management does need to get better. There are very few perfect coaches out there, especially ones that are in their first job and only 2.5, 3 years into it. And everything else about him, and I really do mean nearly everything else about him, I think has been absolutely brilliant in taking this club to where it is. But Saka it feels at times untouchable. I don't know if he leaves him on because he feels as though like taking him off after the penalty would be too damaging mentally in that sense. Like, let him play. But I think actually you've got more of a responsibility to take him out of the firing line in that moment and give Trossard a chance. Because Jesus was motivated. I think we've seen a better Jesus than we've ever seen, since coming back from injury. I don't think he was like amazing. I thought he had a decent game on Sunday, but I thought he was doing more than what, Saka was. And I think that he still could have done more as well. So I think when it comes down to the timing of substitutions, I think when it comes down to the tactical side of assessing where players need to be and when they need to come off, that needs to improve. But I also thought towards the end of the game, Eddie Nketiah, for instance, right, is a player that's never scored this season from coming off of the bench. Hasn't scored a single goal from the bench this season. Last season, Emile Smith-Rowe, think about how many times Smith-Rowe came off the bench and scored for us. And it's interesting to me that Smith-Rowe was not the person to come off the bench. I think I don't think that's tactical. I personally am thinking and starting to think that there's more to this than meets the eye regarding Smith-Rowe. Because if you're looking at if you are Smith-Rowe and you're sitting on the bench and your team is needing a goal, and you're seeing, with no disrespect, Nketiah and Reece Nelson come on ahead of you, you have to be starting to question when you've been given a brand new contract. You've been given the number 10 shirt. You are the Hailer prodigy behind Bukayo Saka that's the next on the list, and they're coming on before you. And look, Reece Nelson's come off the bench and done great things for us this season. We all know that. But Nketiah, as I say, has not scored a single goal, whereas Smith-Rowe has a track record of coming off the bench and scoring. So that was a frustration for me as well. I didn't mind Partey coming off because I think we all agreed that, he was having a bad game. I didn't mind Jorginho coming on in his place. I didn't particularly like Tierney coming off late either. If you were going to take one of the defenders off, I would have probably brought Holding off, put Tierney into that left centre-back role, move Gabriel across and have White as the right-sided centre-back so that you've still got Tierney to kind of turn it into a back two when you want to go overly attacking in the final moments. So I thought that was a bit odd. But the one that bugged me the most was taking Ødegaard off. Because for me, at the end of the game, when you need someone to find you a pass, like we used to say about Mesut Ozil, and you never used to want to take Mesut Ozil off, but I think it's different in this case because what Ødegaard brings you that Ozil didn't is the energy as well, is the direct pace, the runs into the box, and the actually getting on the end of chances himself, as well as he showed already in the first half. So all of those things that I've discussed, and sorry for going on so long, but there was a lot of subs to talk about. I just look at that. I look at the Liverpool game. I look at previous games, the Manchester United game at Old Trafford, where we overdid it with 3 subs coming on at once. It's just an area of Arteta's game that needs to improve. I think if you're, and I can see Dave in the chat box, is fine sitting there saying, they're baseless claims. I don't think they're baseless at all, because I think you see the evidence of significant numbers of games now, and you can see the theme and the trend appearing that show the correlation is, in this case, I think, causation around Arteta.
And Tom, with Ødegaard, second game in a row, he's come off. So for me, I look at that, and second game in a row, Ødegaard's come off when he regularly completes 90 minutes. And this is both when you've gone down when you've gone up by 2 goals, and then the other teams come back. And I start to think to myself, what's the message there? Does Arteta feel like Ødegaard is part of that weakness that gets overrun? Is that why it's specifically him? The Thomas Partey one's an interesting one, because I don't think very often watching Arsenal have I thought to myself, we look better now Thomas Partey's off. That thought has hardly ever come into my head. So on this game, I'm torn, because yes, he was not having a good game. On the other hand, I'm not conditioned to want Thomas Partey to ever come off. So I think that's a bit worrying. And I totally agree with you on the ESR one. I find that very strange that there's so many people ahead of him in the pecking order to come on and change a game. So I don't know what's going on there personally.
Do you think perhaps the ESR, they're just protecting him, bringing him back slowly? Maybe that injury was that bad? I mean...
It was bad, but I mean, from what I've been told, he's fully fit. Like he's ready to play. Otherwise, why have him on the bench? If he's not ready to come on in the last 5 minutes of a game when you need a goal, I mean, when are you going to use him? The only thing I can think of is if you're 4-0 up, and you can just throw him on when you're very comfortable. If that's the only scenario, but I don't want someone to be on the bench for that scenario. I want everyone on that bench to be and have a purpose, to be a game changer. That's what your bench should be about, is having people that can change the game, finish the game, as in, when you bring holding on, when you're trying to hold on to a lead, if you're doing a defensive change, or you bring someone in an attacking sense to do something. Every single sub should have a purpose. And I just don't see the purpose of Smith Rowe right now. And he probably himself can't see the purpose of him being on the bench. And that it's certainly worrying.
See, I'm probably going to disagree. I know the Partey wasn't having the best of games, but I still don't think I would have taken him off, because Declan Rice, at least Partey, if he managed to get his game back together in that game, he could do something. He can, he could create. He could score a goal. He could have maybe started to get his game back on track. Whereas I didn't really fancy Jorginho up against Rice at all. I couldn't see him getting a grip of that midfield. And then on top of that, he took Ødegaard off, meaning that you lose your creator and your orchestrator in midfield. I don't see how that would have made a massive difference. I didn't agree with these substitutions, but at the same time, we have to accept that as much as this is is it second youngest team in the league, or is it the youngest? It keeps changing. I think it's the second at the moment, but probably the youngest to be challenging for a title, I would imagine, for a long time. And we have to also accept that the manager's one of the youngest managers, and he's going to make mistakes. And those who are calling for Arteta, suggesting that we could get better in, I've started to not understand that mentality, because it's because of him that we are there, because of the football that he's put into the club. He's sort of indoctrinated these guys with a new way of playing, and then they want to take the very guy out that has created this style of play and this football that we haven't seen for a long time. It makes absolutely zero sense. Go on, Mo.
Yeah, just a quick one. Just want to talk about the substitutions. The one that I find the worst out of all of them is Jesus coming off, personally. Because, you're talking about Partey right now. What I would say is that imagine Partey made another mistake that led to a goal for West Ham. It would be unequivocal. Everyone would be saying, why didn't you take him off? He's having a bad game. So when you like that, I can understand what angle Arteta was considering, perhaps that, he made a mistake not playing his best game and he might be a bit nervous, whatever. But what angle could he possibly have for Jesus? Why would you take Jesus?
Yeah, that one did not. I couldn't understand that at all.
You did it last week and it didn't work, right? I mean, it's very recent, very, very similar. 2-0 up, 2-2. It didn't work. He scored the week before. He scored in this game. He's got unbelievably good ability to manage a game, to come deep, to take pressure off. So help me out here, lads. What is the angle? People in the comments, what was Arteta thinking? The one thing I try and do all my life when I see a manager do something that I find really, really odd is I sit there and I think, why might he be doing this? And I'll give you an example of that. Emery playing Torreira, really high up the pitch. I sat there and thought, right, this seems bonkers. So why is he doing it? And actually I thought, okay, I can understand that Torreira is a specialist ball winner, a bit of a terrier. If he wins the ball up high up the pitch, then we're very, very likely to be able to get a shot on target or score a goal. Whilst if he wins it further down the pitch, he'll just sort of build play. So I thought maybe that's what he's thinking. But I do not know. I cannot come up with a reason why Jesus is routinely being subbed off.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. That did bother me the most. I mean, very quickly, I'd like to address this. I mean, look at Dave Jordan here. He says, no, Lev, it's because of him, Arteta, obviously, we only have 74 points from 31 games. If we had another manager, they'd do magical substitutions that would make us win every game. Now, the thing that Dave's missing here is
sarcasm.
Is it really? Is it really sarcasm?
Dave Jordan, whenever I've read any of his comments, he gets it bang on. This is sarcasm.
I hope it's sarcasm. Anyway, Alex, I can't read that. I think it's Russian. Thank you for your support. Rice used his hand to get the ball from Partey. So that is a mistake by the ref, not Thomas. Crazy how nobody... No, hold on, Alex. In my opinion, it's a mistake making that decision to try to something so fancy in such a dangerous position. Whether or not we could argue the case, and one thing I did notice, there was no VAR repeat straight away. We didn't see any replays, which I did notice immediately. And from different angles I've seen since, it does look like it's hit Declan Rice's arm. But what a poor decision to make in that area of the pitch when you're 2-0 up away in such an important game. So I'm sorry, Alex, I don't agree with you. Guys, you agree with me on that?
I think it goes from his side onto his arm, which in any case is not going to be handball. So yeah, it's not handball.
Yeah, it's not a handball. And ironically, in the Leeds-Liverpool game that's being played right now, apparently Liverpool's first goal is very controversial because it hits Alexander-Arnold on the arm, and he plays a 1-2 with Saka and sets up Cody Gakpo. So that one actually should have been disallowed. But...
No, Saka.
Pardon?
He said plays a 1-2 with Saka.
Oh, Salah. Sorry.
That'd be interesting.
But in this case, in Arsenal's case, apparently because a penalty was given, the handball didn't lead to a goal. It led to a penalty, which is why they can't even rule it out. So, yeah.
So, I mean, where do you see us going from here now, guys? Because firstly, have we heard any news with regards to Saliba's injury, Zinchenko's injury? I mean, Saliba's one is really vague. Oh, we're looking at a couple of weeks. Some are saying he's not going to make the City game. Where do we go from here, guys? I mean, what do you envisage happening?
Saliba's back. I don't think Saliba will be back for City. I'd be very surprised unless they're playing some mind games. All the messages are he won't be. And Zinchenko hopefully will be back on Friday, so he should be there. But yeah, Saliba won't be there.
Isn't it funny? I've seen a lot of people, some well-known YouTubers, etc. So they were suggesting Tierney had to come in for Zinchenko based on Zinchenko's recent performances. But then as soon as you see Tierney in that same position, you can't play Tierney in that inverted fullback position. You either have to play him in his normal standard orthodox fullback position, which then affects the whole way we play, or you need Zinchenko in there. So, I mean, what we got? We got Southampton on Friday. What are you thinking, Mo? What are you expecting moving forward now? Because there's a lot of talking in social media. We've blown it, etc., etc. But I was one of those saying, and I tweeted it out initially because I was so devastated. It was the being 2-0 up and losing those two, that lead again, 2 games in a row. In the cold light of day, the next day, when you think about it, we've played 9 games, won 7, drawn 2. In any other walk of life, we'd be saying we're on a great run here, right? So even if City win their game in hand, we're still a point ahead. But we were ready, a lot of us have been defeated. So I was one of them. But I've come back and said, look, we're still in this. And I'm from the era of 89, where we had to go to Anfield and win by 2 clear goals. A team, Liverpool team, that was very much of the ilk of the City of today with regards to, how they were revered and how good they were. What do you see moving forward? Do you see a bounce back? Do you see us coming back? Do you see the likes of maybe Saka and Partey coming back with a new fire in their belly to make up for these mistakes and get us back on track?
I think yes, we will see the fire in the belly, but I think the Premier League, since its inception, has shown that fire in the belly, guts and courage and brilliant sliding tackles are no match for technical brilliance, and just the machine-like efficiency that Man City now have with De Bruyne and Haaland. De Bruyne picks up the ball and always plays the right pass. Haaland gets a chance and always is clinical. That's what we're dealing with here. So as much as we will see a response, and I really do think we will, I think we'll go in and beat Southampton on the weekend. But the problem that Arsenal have is simply that we have to play Man City. That's it. That's the problem. And I'll be honest with you, a bit of a confession. At no point this season have I said I think Arsenal win the league. I've not thought that Arsenal will win the league at any point this season, which is why perhaps I was a bit calmer after the West Ham game than many others, because I'm not surprised at all. Given that we've always had to play Man City, I've always made them favourites. Even when the bookmakers, when statistical computers were putting Arsenal ahead, I was thinking that, the reality is we're not favourites. So that's the bad side. That's sort of like the negative. But the good side is that after Arsenal dropped points against Liverpool, what we had to do was win every game, but draw at the Etihad. Yeah? And if we did that, we'd win the league. And that's if Man City win every game, basically, yeah? Now, after drawing to West Ham, that situation hasn't changed. So in a way, nothing has really changed. All we have to do is avoid defeat at the Etihad and win our other games. And we win the league, irrespective of what Man City do, irrespective of how good they are, irrespective of how many hat-tricks Haaland scores. So that's it. Don't lose at the Etihad. As long as we do that, we've got an incredible chance. With Man City's Champions League involvement, FA Cup involvement, I think they will drop a point or two in the Premier League. I really, really don't think they will win every single game. So as long as we can avoid defeat, I think we'll also have another little bit of breathing space given to us. It's all on that now. So over to you, gents, and people in the comments. Do you think we can avoid defeat at the Etihad? That's the golden question.
Yeah, that is the golden question. And also, prediction for the Southampton game. We should do that in a minute. Please hit the likes if you haven't done so already. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. We are going to be finishing at 9 o'clock today. We're a bit short. We're going to be shorter than normal. We'll be resuming back to normal next week.
I won't be here.
You won't, but Tom won't be here. Tom, what? You're not going to do it from Chicago?
Monday. What time would I?
No, mate, you don't have to do it.
2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah.
No, if you decide to give us,
if I have a spare hour and I'm not somehow doing something, I might.
Mate, you could do it from some famous landmark or something if you want. That'd be quite good. Sure. Maybe in the riots or something like that. That'd be quite good, wouldn't it?
Reporting live.
Yeah, reporting live. Trying to find an Arsenal fan. But yeah, so what about you, Tom? How are you feeling about it? Do you think there's going to be some sort of bounce back? And listen, earlier on in this season when we were flying, I actually predicted that we'd go away to City and win. Now, that was before I knew we would be without Saliba and a few other pivotal players. But firstly, do you see a bounce back? Can we still hang in there? And can we get a result both at Southampton and then up at the Etihad?
Well, what gives me a lot of encouragement is obviously how we started the last 2 games. Because if we'd have gone and just been beaten by Liverpool and played as we did for the last, 60, 70 minutes against West Ham in the entire game and didn't offer much, I'd probably be saying it's really difficult to see how Arsenal are turning this around. But actually, the matter of fact is we know Arsenal can be bloody great, can be really, really good. And all you've got to do is sustain that for an extended period and get the 3rd goal or the 4th goal. That's the difference between, I think, Arsenal winning the title and not, is this season, is adding that extra goal to our performances. It's interesting when Mo said that you look at having to play Man City as a problem. I don't see it as a problem. I see it as an opportunity. I feel as though having a point ahead of the Man City going between now and the end of the season, if we didn't have a game against Man City, I feel as though that they would take advantage of obviously us having a slip up along the way, that I imagine would happen, just because we're on paper with the squad depth, everything about it. And just, I think you described it perfectly, Mo, when you said last time, Man City are favourites in every game they play. Arsenal aren't favourites in every game they play. And that's why we're not favourites and haven't been favourites for the title this season, in my opinion.
But Tom, playing Man City at the Etihad, it's an opportunity to get battered, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
I'm scared.
Oh, of course. And so, I would be lying if I said I'm not nervous and anxious about that game. My point is that having a game against Man City is an opportunity to make sure they drop points, whereas we have to rely on everybody else to make sure they drop points in some game this season. We have that in our hands to be able to do that ourselves. And it's not like we haven't beaten Pep Guardiola's team in high-pressure moments. We've done it in 2 FA Cup games? I think it might be 2. Under Arteta, it's definitely 1. And we obviously did it previously when Alexis Sanchez got those couple of goals in the FA Cup semi-final as well. But you look at what this Arsenal team has done this season. You look at beating, a Liverpool team. You look at going and winning at places where our record has been awful, like Crystal Palace, like Tottenham. This team has got that ability to overcome the odds. And that has already been, achieved this season by where we are at this point in the season. We have punched above our weight. We are ahead of schedule. I really think this team can go to a place where it was competing for titles, but we're punching above our weight this season. And we're still facing the adversity, as we already mentioned, the misfortune of the injuries that we've had to deal with as well. I look at that game against City as an opportunity. It's a cup final. It's a League Cup final in, a much more glamorous way than what a League Cup final would be. Yeah. But you know what I mean? It is an opportunity for us. And I really think that we can go there and do it because we're capable of it. But also, I agree with you, Mo, we could also go there and absolutely get slapped to pieces. So.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? If one team is getting slapped, it's us. We're not slapping.
You can't see it be there.
But, Tom's frozen.
Oh, no, he's back. I mean, let's hope we get a quick start and get some 2 early goals, because maybe that will give us a buffer for the oncoming onslaught that we'll get from them later on, and maybe give us a draw. Who knows? But
I would take it. If someone said to me, you blow a 2-goal lead for the 3rd week in a row and draw 2-2, I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, weren't City meant to be playing Brighton before us?
So they're not playing any games this weekend. So we can go 7 points clear, but they'll have 2 games in hand this weekend.
One of those is Brighton away.
One of those will be Brighton away. The other one is West Ham, ironically. So, if they can take points off us, do us a favour and take some points off them, please. But yeah, just quickly, one thing we've not discussed is the idea of the bottling thing that you see discussed this weekend, right? Just on that briefly, like, you don't bottle a league campaign against this Man City team. If you lose out to Man City and they get 90+ points, you haven't bottled the league. Liverpool didn't bottle the league when they're going up against Man City, It's not a case of that. And I hate it when fans want to degrade this season by suggesting that somehow we're bottling things. Across 38 games, of course
it's just fans having fun, isn't it? Yeah. Because we'd say
games, you have to play every team, And so we've not yet played all the teams that Man City have played. And so across those 38 games, you don't bottle it because you're coming up against teams that Man City have already beaten or lost to or drawn to or whatever. You won't know if you've done enough to win the league until you get to the end of the season. You know, what we've done this season is unbelievable. And how anyone can try and degrade this campaign by suggesting that it's bottling it is just
forget just the fans though. What about the journalists? You had John Cross come out and saying we've blown it, but then who was it that gave a more balanced? Was it Henry Winter? Yeah,
Henry Winter put a really good tweet out.
He put it, and Gary Lineker said something very similar to what you've just said, Tom. And like, let's be honest, none of these guys would have had us up there where we are today. And then some of these rival fans as well, like you could clearly tell a London-based United fan over a real United fan, because you got Mark Goldbridge saying no real United fan would want City to win the league over Arsenal.
Yeah.
But then you got London-based United fans who are clearly glory hunter plastic fans who would definitely prefer City to win the league over Arsenal, and it's ridiculous. But can we have predictions for the Southampton game on Friday? I go first, I'm guessing, and I'm going to say, is it away or is it home? Is it away?
No, home.
Is it at home? Okay, then I'm going to say we're due. I'm going to say 3-0 Arsenal. There you go.
Okay.
No?
By the way, Lev, I'm hot on your heels now because I got the 2-2 Liverpool score right.
When you say hot on the heels, what's the difference in score?
1 point, mate. 1 point behind you. And then, Tom, how about this for humiliation? The gap between you and I is the same as the gap between you and Shaheem.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Shaheem must have done really well recently then.
That is awful. I'm going to go Arsenal 3, Southampton 1.
Okay.
So
conceded again.
So annoying. Like, you're really irritating. Like, you just always pick the prediction that I'm going to go for every time. I'll go 4-1 then in that case.
Okay, so we all agree we're going to win. And then we got the Etihad. Is it on the Wednesday?
Yeah.
So
I'm going to get back in from Chicago on Tuesday and then head up to Manchester, I think, on Wednesday is the plan. So
come on, please tell me you need a caddy.
A caddy?
Yeah, to carry something. Whatever you want, I'll carry it. Just,
I can get you to the ground. I don't think I'll get you inside, but
just let me walk around with you.
What is a laptop carrier? Is that what you're going to be?
Anything, man. Anything.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
It's going to be the I was there Etihad 23. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure that you know it.
Well, listen. Crazier things have happened. As I said, we had to go to Anfield and win by 2 clear goals. It happened. If the writing's on the wall for Arsenal to win the title, it's going to happen at the Etihad, surely.
Southampton first. We got to get that out of the way. We got to do that because I was thinking about City before West Ham, and now look. So
I know, and it's crazy because if we had won these last 2 games, we'd be in such a strong position right now. And they're the fine lines we're talking about, you know.
Yeah.
And one other thing I disagree with. Everyone is saying, "Oh, if Arsenal don't win the league this year, that's it. Everyone's going to come back stronger next season." We all heard that last season. And this is a young team that's only going to improve, and it's going to have the likes of potentially Declan Rice in there and a few others. It's going to be a stronger side. So I don't agree. I think this is a team to rival City for the next few seasons. So, you know, I'm more upbeat than a lot of others are. But look, guys in the chat, please put your predicted scores for Southampton. If you want to put any other sort of predicted lineups, feel free to do that. Mo, I know we're going to cut it short now. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
Just back the boys. Back the boys to the very end instead of getting all, you know, childish about it and looking for the rants and this and that and the other. They've done unbelievably well. And yes, it will be a huge disappointment if we don't go and win the league. And I'm still frustrated that we are out of the Europa League. Because look, West Ham played on Thursday. City played midweek. They both did all right. You know, I think West Ham are happy with the point than we are. We didn't, and we didn't get the points. It's not as clear cut as, you don't play games midweek and then you're going to win. The reality is the best thing to do is just win every game you flipping play in. That's the one guarantee you have that's going to keep morale up and confidence up. So I'll be gutted if we don't win a trophy this season. We've only got 1 left to play for. Let's just back the boys to the very end.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Well said, Mo. And if you want to see, you know, follow Mo at Arsenal Mo 8, or you can find him on his YouTube channel and where he does his 5 at 5s. Make sure you subscribe to that. Tom, anything else you'd like to add?
You can check out my quick brief chat with Granit Xhaka on the channel tomorrow morning. It's going to be out as the preview for Southampton. We pre-recorded a preview today to go out because obviously I'll be in the air tomorrow morning. And there won't be 8 a.m. UK shows. It'll be 8 a.m. US shows, so 2 p.m. UK time.
So you get a bit of a lie-in then?
No, because I'm still waking up for 8 a.m. US. Do you know how time works?
Oh my god!
You said 2 p.m. over there, right? It's 2 p.m. over there.
No, don't try it. Don't.
No, he said it's 2 p.m. over there.
On that note, you've had a nightmare.
I've had a nightmare. All right, I've had a nightmare. Guys, listen. Just to back up what Mo said. Yes, it will just back the lads. It will be disappointing if we throw the league away, if we drop points and it doesn't happen. But just also remember this: we've overachieved, and the reason we're disappointed is because we overachieved this season by far more than we ever expected. So let's just be balanced, and whatever happens, come on the Arsenal. We're going to be all right. So on that note, I've had a Lionel Mare. Leave it at that. We're out of here. This has been the Arsenal Lounge. Going to eat some food now. Peace. See you later.
Take care.
Well, let me find this thing. Here we go.